Okay. Let's see. We just finished. I was talking about the gravel, that wonderful morning. Um, so we had the barracks. Tell you a little bit about the barracks, what I can remember, and some about um, basic life. Just they did not want you to. You could not walk. They did not want you on their sidewalks. They certainly did not want you on their streets, and you could not get on the grass, but there was no grass, so that meant the uh, sand or dirt that was raked, and you had raked in a certain line. Now the DIs would walk across it to put their prints in the dirt, so you would have to rake it every morning. DIs didn't care. It gave us something else to do with our time. And so inside, so we did that, and inside the barracks were old World War II wooden barracks. And they had the metal bunk beds, which didn't have good springs on it. They were just interlocking pieces of metal. And they were fine. I mean, you slept on a thin mattress and a sheet and an army blanket and a pillow. I think I've forgotten what else. And you had your box at the end. What's that thing called? What's that? The box.
Just the army trunk?
Trunk. Yeah, I'm sorry. My brain didn't work good. So yeah, that had everything in it folded just right. That was it. That little thing. The other stuff went somewhere. There wasn't anything else. And everything was in there in the proper place, folded a certain way, yada yada yada. And so they had inspection every morning. Now the barracks, let me tell you a little bit more about the barracks. Barracks was old wooden. They were heated by coal, and you had a fire watch every night. Everybody, double story, non-air conditioning, no fans. You just open the windows. And at night, somebody was walking up down the halls every hour, rotated, have fire watch for 1 hour. You walk up and down the halls, make sure the place didn't catch on fire. You also had to clean the floor every night. Buff the floor, had to mop it, wet mop it, dry it, and then if it looked bad, which it always did, you had to buff it. Now, the thing was, the less space you used, the less work you had to do. So there was a row down the middle with the columns on each side. It was about 6 feet wide in the middle. Then you had the bunk beds all the way down it. There was a platoon in there, so that's about 45 or 50 people, 20 on each top, on each level. And on those posts, there was a gallon can, like a vegetable can, big can, that you got that somebody had gotten out of the mess hall. And it was painted red, top was taken off, and it was half filled with sand. It was called a fire bucket. So if there was a fire, you're going to throw that half a gallon of sand up. Ridiculous. But anyway, now that I think about it, it's insane. So there's the reason I said that. So if so every night you had the whole platoon had to wet mop the floor. Then if it looked bad, you had to buff it with one of those electric buffers that spun. It was about this big. And if it looked really bad, you had to remove the wax and put it down and then buff it. Because this wasn't a hard wax. This is something, so the idea was to stay off of it. So to get in the barracks, there's about that much space between the back of the bunk beds and the wall with the windows, the exterior wall. So you could not, the rule was you couldn't walk on the center aisle, which is what it was made for walking on. But you couldn't do that. The DIs could. The DIs would purposely walk down that wall, and we would all have to line up in front of them. But we cringed because that meant there were going to be scuff marks on the floor, which meant another hour after we got through training. So anyway, and your bed had to be made a certain way. Had the ends of the mattress had to be the blanket and covers had to be tucked in a certain way. Pillow and the thing folded, and it had to be tight enough so that the DI, when he came in, he could flip a quarter up in the air, and when it hit your the top of your mattress, your covers, it would bounce. If it didn't bounce, or there was any kind of little wrinkle in it, he would rip that mattress and all, he would dump it off the frame onto the floor. And that wouldn't just affect you, that would affect everybody. Because everybody got in trouble for one person's mistake. Everybody, usually. I mean, you got in more trouble, but everybody got in trouble. So, let's see, there was that, there was the fire guard. So, unfortunately for us, my DI was Sergeant Sebo. Never forget that name. He's about 6'4". We had one other guy, there were two DIs, but I don't even remember the other one. I think it was that little short, skinny guy. I hated him. Oh, he was so bad. Oh, he was terrible. But anyway, Sebo was tall. He was mean, but he wasn't out for blood. He wasn't. The other guy would ridicule you, and if you were married, he would get in front of you, get right up in your face, and tell you what he had done to your wife the night before, and you couldn't do anything but turn red. Oh, I just wanted to. I wasn't married, so he didn't do that to me. But the guys, different guys in the platoon, it's just, you know, screaming out loud to everybody. It's terrible. It's ridiculous. Why didn't you need for that? So we unfortunately did not. Well, matter of fact, we came in last several times, and Sebo warned us. I'll never forget this. He warned us. Sergeant Sebo said, "If y'all come in one more time, last, y'all are gonna have to go out with the Fat Boy platoon." Now, the Fat Boy platoon you did not want to go out with, because that was all the fat boys in the company that were overweight. They took them out for extra PT, besides the PT that we had during training. Then when everybody else went back to the barracks for not PT or rested or something, they would form up in a platoon and go and run or go do. They went and did something. They came back all sweaty and tired and angry, and so you did not want to go with the Fat Boy platoon. And so one day we went over the red line in the sand. We came in last again. Oh my goodness alive. Oh, one thing Sebo did, I guess it was Sebo, if the floor didn't look good and he walked in, he would walk down the aisle. Oh, this made us, we'd be standing in front of our bunks at attention, and he'd walk through, and if he didn't like it, those little fire buckets, he'd go and he'd walk down and reach up there, he's looking down, and he'd just go pop, and he knew how to, apparently had done it a lot. He'd hit that fire bucket, and it would just fly up in the air, and all that sand would land on that freshly waxed floor. And he just walked through it. So now he ground the sand into, so then we'd have to strip it. And so what we would do, and we couldn't do it, because we were tied up with something until you fell over dead. So what we figured we would do, and we did, was we would take our blankets off of our bed and cover all the windows. You know they knew what we were doing. Cover our windows so they couldn't see the lights being on. So we'd stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning, stripping the wax and buffing the floor for getting up at 4:30 and doing whatever we did the next day. Oh my goodness. But you had motivation to do it because you did not want to go with the Fat Boy platoon. But we ended up one day on the Fat Boy platoon. And so we got outside, and there was a drill instructor, a DI that, the PT DI, it's really in shape and all this stuff, and he loved showing off how he could do stuff more than we could. So they got our platoon up, and after we got off training one day, about 4, and we formed up and ran way down Tank Hill, down the road. And I say run, we were just, in formation doing the airborne shuffle, or not a run, but in formation run. And you sang wherever you went, so we were singing. And we went way back on some road, dirt roads, back in the woods. We just kept running and kept running. We came to this place where he stopped us, and there was a line of about 100 yards. It looked like, and and I surmised that it was, they dumped sand, just dumped it out of dump trucks for 100 yards, just big cones, just one behind the other, probably to go get dirt for the pugil pits or wrestling pits or whatever, or for something. But there was sand, just little big cones of sand. And so what we did was we marched down to the end of those, and we laid with our feet up the cones. So your feet were up, you were laying on it, and it was bigger enough to where you could lay there and you wouldn't be down on the ground. So you were laying at a slant. So we had to lay down and put our arms out and just throw sand. I've forgotten his commands to throw sand up in the air. So we got sand all over us. And the famous thing was, "Do you love it?" And we would all say, "Yes, Drill Sergeant." And I can't hear you, and we'd scream it again. So then we had to do sit-ups. We did sit-ups on a board before we went to supper. You had to do 10 sit-ups, 10 pull-ups, run, dodge, jump, run and dodge, and then you had to jump a board. Then you had to do pull-ups and sit-ups on this inclined thing. Well, we had to do sit-ups in this thing, and you were getting nasty sand all over you. You were sweating. And we had to do all sorts of exercises. And we were with, now the fat boys were with us. So it was a lot of guys, and the guys that were overweight. But they weren't doing, this was punishment for us. So they were kind of doing it, but they couldn't do much.